Thank you for showing up to the panel. I think, cannabis packaging is a great topic because, it's the first thing that your customers see, but quite often it's the last thing that's mapped out in the entire operation. So I'm very blessed to have a great panel spanning, a few different countries, and it'd be great to just draw, some experience and inspiration from everybody's stories. So thank you for coming. So I'm from ND Supplies. I am a global supplier of packaging products specifically for the cannabis industry, based in Canada, but now global. And I'm very, very fortunate to have all these other experts from around the world joining me here today too. So some of the topics I'd like to touch on today: sustainability, and consumer use, and just overall packaging design. So I'd like to introduce my panelists. If you can all introduce yourselves, that'd be great.
Sure, I'll start. My name is Jack Hill. I'm with Chubby Gorilla. We are based in Southern California. We were also a global packager, started in e-liquids, and now we were in cannabis, and we package a lot of other things as well.
Hi, everybody. My name is Petra Marinko. I come from Pharma G company. We started a brand Nabi. We don't do packaging, but we use really good packaging, and we know how to design a good package. And it kind of shows what you want to present with a good package, so I'm here to talk about that. Thank you.
Yeah, hey everybody, my name is Felix Bischoping. I'm CEO of Pakiro. We are a German company, also supplying packaging. When we started, our idea was basically that we have a solution for also small amounts of packaging, so we're very flexible in our production, so we can produce very small amounts or big amounts. And then when we started 2020, we directly saw that there's a huge demand in the CBD market. And I think since that, in Germany at least, most of the CBD companies know us, and we help them with our packaging.
Great, thank you. So packaging, it's one of those things that a lot of people do struggle to unwrap. So when it comes to us in Canada, for example, there's a lot of regulations when it comes to how cannabis is packaged, what kind of materials you're able to use. So first and foremost is packaging design and how that relates to your brand. So maybe Petra, you can lead us off by saying what's your thought process when it comes to how your package is designed, and and how does that work out?
Well, I'm an architect by profession, so I'm a visual type of person, and I believe that we are really visual. People are really visual, and the design of the packaging is the first thing that people see. And if you do a good thing, then people take your product. They take it to the hand, and they can feel the product, have an experience with it.
Right.
And I think it's really important regarding the design and branding, and also materials. You guys are doing a lot of different materials. And the other point of view that we chose was also, and it was really important for us, was reuse. Not only being recyclable, but to let people reuse. So we use our tubes, which are really useful because you can have your product in your tube. You can put a tube inside a drawer, so you have it packed like this. People use it for cables. People use it for screws, for different kinds of things. Right. They get creative with the packaging. And this was one of the most important things for us to get people our box and reuse it again, not just throw it out and that's it. And the other aspect that we were really paying attention to was the microplastics that come into the product. So it was really hard for us to find packaging for creams, lotions, and stuff like that without plastic. It's impossible. Every part of a lotion pump is made out of plastic. You cannot do that.
Yeah.
So switching to tubes for us was a really big thing. We ditched the plastics, we ditched everything. Everything is 99% recyclable, and it's aluminum.
I love how that's part of your brand. And you did mention also that your aluminum tubes are locally sourced.
Yes.
Right? So that helps a lot too with the overall carbon footprint.
Yeah, that was one of the reasons why we decided the tubes. The production company of the tubes is 5 kilometers from where we are stationed, so that's a zero impact on the environment. And it's actually really easy to manipulate with the products that you have if you have everything by your hand. So first line that we did, we got it from China. It was really well made, premium products. We tested everything for migration of bad stuff into the products. Everything worked fine. But it was expensive and it took a long time. So those kind of things, if you're pivoting through the regulations of the CBD and everything, you need fast delivery, lower quantities, and we can have this.
That's amazing. Yeah, so, speaking of regulations, Jack, you're coming from the American market, the US market, where branding and things like that's a lot more liberal, right? Can you go through some of the processes with, design in the States? Because I know in Canada, everything's very, very muted. I wish we had the freedom that you did, so... So maybe you can kind of go over some of that.
Yeah, I would say packaging in the United States, branding is everything. Marketing is everything because you have some of the largest names, biggest brands in cannabis who are going to be there. And going into a dispensary in the States, it is a circus of colors, shapes, images, everything you can imagine on a Mylar bag, which is radically different from going into a Canadian dispensary where all of that is minimalized to be able to do that. So my company, Chubby Gorilla, that is what we cater to. So we call ourselves a specialty packaging company. We will get your Pantone color, we will get your logo, and then actually turn the packaging into that color. We also partner with a lot of companies like Petra's who actually focus on the design of it, and we say, hey, we will make packaging for you that you sell through to your customers as well, because they're far more better at the design aspect. We would just rather make the custom packaging for whatever the functionality that's needed. So that's the biggest difference that I see in the markets. And then even if I say the US market in general, I could spend another hour just talking by state because they still haven't had a agreed upon for what the whole country is going to have as far as their packaging standards. But branding is definitely a key part of the market that we play in.
Great. Well, thank you for your insight. Now, Felix, you've been in the flexible packaging game for a long time. How do you see branding and things like that play out in the German market?
Yeah, I think it's the same with marketing. I mean, if you often look at the product, they basically look the same. If you talk about coffee or CBD or whatever, you cannot really judge how good the quality is just by looking at the product. So the marketing aspect of the packaging is so important, and I think it's the same in Germany or all over Europe. I think there's no difference to the States, but still, I think that there is a change currently in the market because, I mean, for example, big brands were only making the market. So if you look at the coffee brands in Germany, you had like, I don't know, 20, 30 a couple of years ago, and now more and more of the small coffee brands appear, and they're super creative with their packaging. So with their design, with their packaging, they want to have an outstanding packaging, so really to distinguish them from the others, especially from the big brands, and to make them special. And I think this you can see all over Europe that these small players appear and are super creative with the packaging.
That's amazing. So let's dream a little bit now and just imagine that cannabis as an industry did legalize. Like, how would that affect packaging in Germany, Slovenia, and in the US?
It depends.
In your opinion, of course. It's a very open question, right? But it's also, we're here, everybody's very optimistic, so let's dream a little bit, right? Like, the industry is what it is.
It is a big discussion, definitely. But the thing is, really, at the moment, nobody can say it exactly how it will be. And I think, but there's certain aspects which will be important, So, and I think one important aspect is what will be the distribution channel. So either it will be mostly done via pharmacies, or it will be done a little bit like the way in the Dutch market, where it's way more recreational and you have coffee shops and all of this. So if it will go the direction more of the pharmacies, it will be kind of more, let's say, so kind of the pharmacy-looking packaging, but it goes more to the recreational. It will be more like aggressive marketing. But there's also a discussion, because similar to the Netherlands, who is not allowed to print kind of marketing stuff anymore on tobacco packaging. So this can be also an option for the legislation at the moment, that they really say, okay, the packaging needs to be completely gray and maybe only the logo will be possible. So this is really a discussion, and I think it's it's really kind of in the middle of this discussion at the moment. And other aspects will be also important, like sustainability, definitely. Then traceability, so that you can really trace the packaging back. And yeah, also a little bit kind of protection stuff. So there is, even for smaller, like mailer bags, will need something kind of a child protection.
Petra?
I would more focus on the design point of view. Of course, sustainability and everything that Felix said is the same in Slovenia. It's the same thing. But regarding design, I think the minimalism that we kind of also wanted to present with our product is becoming more. It's maybe more. People use it more. So.
Right, yeah.
We get distracted every day by so many information, and by so many information on the packaging, you get lost, you know.
Yeah.
Everybody is trying to stand out in a way. And for example, for us, it was easy because in cannabis business, everything is green or black, you know. It's like, okay, so we'll be white, you know. But in different kind of product development and products placing on the market, I see the minimalism going to the little information, less colors, less vibrant, or a different one in more colors and everything just shiny and so on.
Right.
But it's changing, and you have to pivot through the
That's right, yeah.
trends that are coming. So yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Because like, on our side of the world, it's like there are very, very heavy regulations, right? I wish we were more like you guys, Jack, and we had a little bit more freedom. But if the U.S. is to ever legalize federally, do you think that would change cannabis packaging in any way?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that's going to change is that once we have federal wide open, now it becomes truly creative. And we've seen some people get really creative with the products that they want to offer. I've seen drinking straws that would have powder in them, so that way you put the straw on the drink and you shake it up and then you're good to go and you drink with the straw, right? So as soon as these things come about, though, the biggest thing that happens then, it all turns into regulation and compliance. And that's where really we see a lot going on in the state of California to make sure that you have all your ISO certifications, to make sure you have your GMP, to allow for the flexibility and the creativity that people want to have now that you have everything federally regulated. So that's really what we focus on, just to make sure that everyone has the certifications that they need and then they can get as creative as they want to get.
That's excellent. Are there currently any certifications needed for packaging in Germany?
No, not written down.
Yeah.
I mean, there is a discussion about GMP and on some ISO norms, which probably will be the standard. But when it comes to pharmacy, you definitely have to look way more into the pharmacy sector than into normal food licenses.
So, like, is there like child resistant certification needed? Maybe like food testing, FDA testing needed, and things like that?
Yeah, I mean, food is easier than pharma. So basically, every good packaging production is somehow certified for food. GMP and pharmacy is always the next step, and this is something you normally have to implement.
Excellent. Yeah, so the next question really would be sustainability. I mean, cannabis at its roots is a very grassroots-based kind of industry. So it's kind of meeting the middle ground between like the corporate side and the business side of cannabis, plus meeting the grassroots side too. So sustainability is right in the middle of that. And in Canada at least we have we have a decent recycling program. Germany obviously is a global leader in recycling and things like that. So what kind of materials and what kind of packaging do you see being the leader in Germany?
Yeah, it's definitely called monomaterial. So you basically have to produce the packaging out of one plastic material, and then you basically get all the certification that it is recyclable. So either you choose PP or whatever plastic, it needs to be one, and then you have a good chance to be recyclable. But the EU will basically next year, in the middle of next year, will kind of discuss or basically close a new law which is called PPWR, And this will basically wants to harmonize all these sustainability laws across Europe, and this will be super big because the changes will be big, and it will be always about recyclability, not so much about bioplastics. So bioplastics are a little bit out. So it's still under discussion, but it really looks like more super recyclable and reuse. So what Petra just mentioned, so the EU will dramatically push, especially for the hotel and gastronomic sector, reuse concept. And I think, sustainability will not be an option anymore, it will be mandatory.
I love that.
I'm surprised that there are no cannabis products. Cannabis is a great material also for packaging, and
absolutely.
there are so many on the so little on the market, and so many of other things.
Yeah, we're having that conversation the other day where we're talking about how hemp, right? Hemp is such a great product. There's so many things you can do with it. But if you were to break it down, if you were to use hemp plastic, for example, it's still a compound. It's still a hybrid of plastic and hemp, which still ends up in the landfill, right? So until we come up with something that's fully compostable, made out of hemp, I think that's great. But we're still a little bit behind on that.
But there are many ways. For example, like an egg cartoon, it would be easily made out of hemp. And nobody does that. Why? I would love to have that kind of packaging.
I think the biggest thing is we have to look at the almost cradle to the grave for a lot of these products. And so where I agree with you, there is a lot of hemp that could be used. It still has to go through the regulatory and compliance testing, especially at the pharmaceutical level, and some of it will fall way short of that. There's also things that we say, hey, we could use more paper. And then I look about who else is using paper in the paper industry, and what are we doing to make sure that we can grow the paper back as far as sustainable forest. We also look at materials like glass, and we say, okay, glass, the gold star of recycling. It takes a lot more heat to melt glass, and we just don't get it from the sand on the beach. You have to disturb marine environments to be able to dredge that up. So overall, the footprint, for a company like mine, we try to look at the entire perspective and say what makes the most sense in certain markets, and then what is going to work when it actually comes to testing and compliance. But I think a lot of packaging companies are starting to explore this to answer some of the questions that you have. Sometimes we're limited by the state or the country. Sometimes we're limited by what is ultimately going to go into it.
So what I see the most promising option currently with hemp is paper. So also when it comes to the legislation about sustainability, it's always about recyclability. So and if you have a recyclable paper, which is made out of hemp, which is possible, I think we have a good solution, because one hand recyclable, on the other hand paper, but it is very difficult. So we tried it already a couple of times on our machines, and it's really hard to find a good paper which is manufacturable with printing, with bag making whatsoever, with paper made out of hemp. But I think it will be possible next year, yeah.
Are there any government grants or programs that support research like this here in your respective countries?
Yes, definitely. Yeah, a lot. The EU is pushing that, Germany is pushing that, and I think that there's really so much demand actually currently on the market that you really can also push forward. I mean, Belgium will set up a law on the 1st of January, which will be super strict. So it will be too expensive to bring non-recyclable packaging to the market. So basically, nobody will do it anymore.
And that's a really good point, is that we also have to watch what is the ultimate cost going to be. Because if we don't price it just right, then you're going to have a certain section of the non-metric market, black market, if you will, that will just go and find other packaging to use. So we have to find that sweet spot of, does it meet our collective sustainability requirements, but also can we offer it at a good market price where people will have the demand to actually get it from us?
Yeah, for sure. Well, there's a lot of boxes to check off, right? And taking a look at the Canadian model, for example, the companies there, they're not very profitable between high taxes and still trying to roll things out. It doesn't leave a lot of room for profit. So for us, for example, if I was to say, hey, you know what, a plastic tube costs you, let's just say 5 cents. But if you want to be sustainable, are you willing to pay 30, 40, 50, 60% more? And most companies, as much as they would love to, they just can't afford it right now, because you still got to keep the lights on. You got to keep the operation going. So that, like you said, how are we going to come together to alleviate that, right? And I still think, technologically and all those things, where we are as an industry, we're just not there yet. But events like this really come allows us to come together and really kind of meld our minds and share our knowledge to eventually figure that out. Because cannabis, in Canada is 5 years in. In most of the other countries, it's just starting, right? So we have a lot of time to figure it out. So I'm glad we're able to sit down and go over these topics, right? And if there's any questions in the audience later, we'd love to answer that as well. Is there any questions from the audience, or are there any?
Wake up.
Okay, so let's go back to sustainability then, right? I think that's one of the biggest topics, right? And so in America and in the States, I see there is a lot of innovation.
Yes.
I'm seeing, like ocean recycled plastic, post-consumer recycled plastic, and even compostable plastics. What do you think is the front runner for materials in the long run?
I think the biggest one right now is going to be the one that the food and drug industry is using in the States, and that is a certain percentage of post-recycled material. So I think both New York in 2024 is going to demand 35% be post-recycled material. California may follow that, but if any of you know California, it's just whatever it is that they want to do, because they don't recognize compostable and they really don't recognize biodegradable. So I can't even get the two states to follow that right now. But I think that will be the first phase, and then after that, they will start to increase what that percentage is as we go. And then as we approach that threshold of 45 to 50%, then probably some compliance will need to come into play to see if the pharmaceutical company is comfortable with that amount of recycled material and where that's coming from and how clean and how processed that is. So that's kind of where I see the window going.
It's amazing. So Felix, you have quite a few sustainable options in your portfolio, right? What do you see as the most popular?
Most popular currently is really the recyclable packaging, but being honest, recyclable packaging is only new packaging which can be recycled. So we don't close the circle here at all. Yeah? So it's really only the first step. And we write a lot of blog texts and try to explain that. And everybody also misunderstands often recyclable with it is already recycled. Yeah. So they said, hey, we got recycled packaging. No, you don't.
Is there any thought to like reusable packaging? Maybe you bring in a glass jar. Or
reuse will be big. Reuse will be a big topic.
But I have one aspect of reusable that it's not many times seen, and that's toxicity. If you use plastic and reuse it and reheat it again and make the processes.
I'm thinking like glass or some things like that. I understand.
Glass
also,
really tricky.
Yeah, glass can be tricky too. Yeah.
I understand sometimes the necessity for childproof packaging, but apparently I am not as smart as a child because it is very hard to open. And I feel bad for some people who may have arthritis or problems and things and can't open. The liquor bottle is not childproof packaging, and that's probably way more dangerous to your kids than a 5 milligram gummy. Well, that comes There's any pushback toward that, or you guys just do whatever the state says?
Actually, the test it was very funny. We had in Germany, it's called TÜV, TÜ, whatever, who was checking that, and they told us how they check it, and they give it to 10 people who are over 70 years old. They need to still open the packaging, and to 10 people who are below 7 years old, so it's kids, and they shouldn't be able to open it, and then you pass the test.
Yeah, well, in Canada, it's very important. Every package going through retailers has to be certified child resistant. So we independently certify all our products, and we take that into consideration too, right? So we want to make sure that medical patients and recreational patients are able to open it easily without any issues and things like that. But having a child resistant mechanism, it varies. Sometimes it's finicky. If you're using a bag, sometimes you gotta stick your finger in and kind of pull it through a little bit. So you know exactly what I mean too, right? And
scissors
work too, but then now you can't reclose it, and now it's not child resistant anymore. So there's a lot of things we're trying to map out and work out, but it's rolled out. It's not perfect, but like I said, the opportunities like this to get together really allows us to dial it in a little bit and get a little bit more feedback. Yes.
Yeah, in Canada, we are.
Wait.
In Canada, we're faced with price compression at the store. So packaging is a part of that. So the consumers are relying on the highest THC for the best price, and that's the bottom line. That's the reality of the world. But however, when they get our packaging, sometimes they're like, "Where is no recycling? Why is no made out of hemp?" And all that. All those options are higher costs, right? What is the industry doing to get to a better medium, like to a better place for us to do the right thing, but also be able to compete at the store level?
That's a great question. I mean, I could start with, from a Canadian point of view, it's kind of like we have to work together really and come out, see what the budget is and things like that. What we do, what we specialize in is working with our clients to figure out what your budget is, and we could build something around that. We do a lot. We spend a lot of time in the field, doing R&D. We visit a lot of sites just to try to see how to make things easier. But at the same time, I think, instead of looking at the upfront costs, it's also about how can we make your production more efficient, right? I'd rather, spend a few cents more upfront and save you a few salaries on the back end. Right, and that's where we're going to see these savings, right? So, but there is no real hard answer right now to that, unfortunately. Do you guys have any insight on that?
And the only thing I can think to add to that is that we try to offer different tiers of products, and hopefully there might be a tier above or below that's going to meet your right price range. And then also we have other ways, because it might just be distribution. What is the shipping cost to be able to get it to you? If I have a different place where I can move a warehouse or a hub that's going to be more suitable, I try to find other ways to help your business out. And then also just coming up with innovative ways to be able to close and seal the product. If I can eliminate 2 machines that you would have on a line, or maybe eliminate the use of shrink wrapping and other materials, that might also be a healthy savings for you, and you might go in the direction of my packaging. So we try to look at it from that point of view.
That's a great point, man, for sure. Do we have any other questions in the crowd?
Don't be afraid. I'm wearing comfortable shoes. I can run right up to you. All right. What do you see in the future? Did we talk about that already? Did I miss it?
Well, I'm, I love to be a dreamer, but I'm also a realist. So I think, the future is undefined, and I know that's a very general thing to say, but like I said, it all comes back to the industry and the community, right? Like, how can we build, a cannabis industry that we can all love and respect and profit at the same time, right? I think there's a lot of open space here, and collaborations like this is what it's really about.
No, I think the industry will hate me for that, but I think no packaging. Seriously, I think
no packaging.
It's called single-use packaging. So all the packaging that we talk about currently is that you use the packaging and then you throw it away. Yeah, and I think this will have an end in the future. I think this is something what we invented something in the last 30, 40 years where like resources were all over the place and nobody cared. So this is the only reason why you come to such a stupid idea like single-use packaging. And I think this will have an end in the next 10 to 20 years, that we only have reuse packaging. I truly believe in this, and then that we don't use single-use packaging anymore. And if we do, then it will need to be fully recycled and really use the material afterwards again for new packaging. So either we close the circle or we only have reuse packaging, but I don't think it will stay the same as it is today.
Well, I do love the idea of reuse packaging. We're actually kicking the idea around back in Canada, and how we have to collect everything, though, it's a huge undertaking.
There were some clubs in Los Angeles and Oakland and Berkeley who they would give you a discount if you brought your glass jar back, and then they will wash it out and reuse it. Yeah. But this is before everything had to be, it was more deli style, right? You build out the big jar of weed and you get the chopsticks and you put it in the jar. And now everything has to be individually packaged, which is very weird to me. Yeah. But also you get all those beautiful loud packs and everybody's got the super colorful packaging and it's got a football player on it and all these other things. So, or it looks like a piñata or, so I think we'll see what happens.
Yeah. Well, if we're here, we're optimistic, right? So I'm very glad that everybody did show up and join us for this panel. I'd like to thank all our great panelists. I had a great time up here. And,
thank you.
I hope everybody gets a little takeaway from everything regarding packaging. So thank you again. Thank you, ICBC. Thank you, Germany. Hope to see you guys again.
Thank you again. Let's hear it again for Kevin Lee and Petra and Felix and Jack Hill. That was fantastic.